Hello and welcome back to Adinkra Simulizi. Last week we had a show about the war in Congo. We went through the history and the causes and the current situation that's ongoing right now. This week we shall be looking at the scandals and controversies of Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia, the former president and former Vice President of Ghana, together with the NPP government that ruled for 8 years since 2016. We will take an in-depth look at the various scandals and controversies that have plagued the President Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia-led NPP government over the past 8 years. From financial mismanagement to corruption allegations, we explore how these issues have shaped public perception and governance in Ghana. So personally, I actually moved to Ghana together with my wife back in 2018. So I actually lived a bit through the Nana Akufo-Addo era for about 6 years or so, if I'm not mistaken. 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And when Nana Akufo-Addo actually took office, there was a sentiment that, there was an end to corruption per se, because the MPP campaign and the MPP promise that they ran on was to end corruption and to free Ghana from the corrupt NDC government, as they liked to paint the picture. But lo and behold, 8 years later, it seems that that was just a ruse for them to come into power. And we're going to get right into the issues, but it seemed like after 2018, let me say, things really started to go downhill in Ghana. And towards Akufo-Addo's second presidency, or second term, let me say, presidential term, it seemed that Ghana completely deteriorated, especially when COVID came. So let's start by looking at the first issue that came about, which was COVID-19. So when COVID-19 started, we didn't know what to expect. We just, for example, me, myself, my wife and I just had our first child. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if the world was ending. I believe everyone remembers the fear and panic, the sheer panic that the world went through with this disease or flu that came out of Wuhan. And I remember everyone got the news that, oh, China, there's this new disease that came out, and we all thought, it's just one of those usual avian flus, it might spread a bit, but then it's going to pass. But nope, little did we know that this pandemic was going to be very real, and it reached the shores of Ghana, it reached the shores of Tanzania, and Africa as a whole. Now, mind you, on a positive note, I can say that President Nana Akufo-Addo actually handled COVID quite well with regards to setting up the isolation centers, with an isolation center that was, I believe, a bit out of the city, and also the hospitals, and also the hotel isolation centers that were set up. People traveling, if they test positive for COVID, can do isolation at Labadi Beach Hotel, for example, was available for about 2 weeks, and then after you test negative, or if you so choose, you can go and isolate at home after that 2-week incubation period. And also the weekly, I believe it was weekly, every Sunday or so, or every second Sunday, he did his best to get on TV and have a live feed reassuring the public, although it ended up being recorded after the first couple of times. Just being in touch with the people, reassuring them that look, we have this many supplies, vaccines are on the way, uh, various solutions that he managed to come across. It was very comforting to see your president come on TV every week, reassuring the public, letting us know what's going on, letting us know the number of infections, letting us know the number of deaths, letting us know which were relatively low. The infections were quite high, of course. In Africa, it's very difficult to limit movement and for people to go into isolation because of the daily bread workers. However, it worked quite well. I think the MPP government did quite well to ensure the safety of Ghana and to ensure the safety of the public. And I myself never really witnessed any, people collapsing on the street or collapsing in the workplace or collapsing at the university where we were studying. I never saw any cases like that. If someone was sick, they would just stay home or go to the hospital. And I didn't lose anyone personally during that time. So quite honestly, I can congratulate and give props to Nana Addo for the way he handled the COVID pandemic in Ghana. It plagued us for about 1.5 to 2 years, and that's one positive that I can really say that they handled very, very well. They were serious. I mean, we had the most uh, secure airport at the time. I think as soon as you land at the airport, you got tested, your temperature was checked, and if you test positive, you're straight away you're taken to a facility, and then eventually they came out with the COVID cards and the mandatory vaccinations at the airport. All of these measures, I think, ensured that COVID was somewhat controlled in Ghana, and we didn't have an issue. And also, if I remember correctly, you had to pay a fee, a COVID testing fee at the airport, and also when even if you were coming in or traveling out, there was a fee that you had to pay, and this ensured that a lot of checks and balances were followed. And I can really say that the MPP government was serious in protecting the Ghanaian public. They also closed the borders. I remember the borders to Burkina Faso, the borders to Togo and neighboring countries. They took it very seriously, and they did not want a situation that Bill Gates described of Africans collapsing in the street because of the COVID pandemic. And we thank God that we never saw that, and it never came to that, both in Ghana and Tanzania. Although Tanzania did not implement any lockdowns or anything like that, but also thankfully there were no COVID did not hit us to the numbers that we saw in America and Europe, especially Italy and Australia and other Western nations that actually have the infrastructure and the medical facilities to handle such pandemics. But thankfully, we were spared. So we're more than grateful that both Nana Akufo-Addo and Magufuli at the time, although Magufuli had a lot of criticisms of how he handled COVID. However, uh, when you compare both countries, I could say compared with the West, the situation was much more under control. So the problem came actually with starting with these fees to be paid at the airport. So Ghana, if I remember, was charging people $50, between 25 and eventually $50 to pay for a COVID testing fee. Now, the general public was told that these funds are going to the measures to, public health measures to prevent COVID, the doctors, the equipment, supplies, gas, oxygen tanks, etc., etc. But little did we know that allegedly um, these funds were being taken to an offshore account. I mean, just try and calculate $50 per passenger on a international flight like Emirates, Ethiopian Airlines. That's a lot of money. You times 50 by 300 or so passengers. That's a lot of, that's a lot of money to make 2 or 3 times a day as the flight schedules were. So these funds, immediately we started hearing after COVID kind of died down, which was 2021, 2022, let's say, you started hearing that, well, these funds have actually started going elsewhere, which was an alleged offshore account. And not just the airport testing fee, but also the MPP government implemented a COVID levy to all taxes, consumer tax havens such as supermarkets or fuel, or any commodity that people buy in mass. They were charging the public COVID levy fees and stabilization fees, and all these funds we started hearing were starting to go elsewhere. So the first scandal that I can say came up with the Akfuado Baumia presidency was the embezzlement of COVID-19 funds. So there was also some grants that had came up, and there was a Euro bond to fight COVID, as well as some funds from the US. The figures that I have is that in February 2020, Ghana was issued a $3 billion Euro bond, becoming the first African nation to issue a 41-year bond. This issuance was divided into three tranches: $1.25 billion with a 6-year weighted average life, $1 billion with a 14-year weighted average life, and $750 million with a 40-year weighted average life. Now, any person would think, okay, $3 billion to fight COVID. Okay, definitely there's going to be some hospitals built because of the uh, Agenda 111, which was a campaign promise, especially in for his second term. And materials, PPEs, doctors' overtime wages, emergency spending. I mean, the whole works. One would have thought, okay, we're about to see Ghana's medical institution transform. However, this clearly wasn't the case. Of the $3 billion, not a single hospital was built. Not a single, waste processing facility was built. I mean, yeah, probably a few doctors benefited and some family and friends of the government, but some bills probably were paid. However, in the case of a whole $3 billion, we did not see the promising development that we wanted to see. So also the IMF had released a $1 billion disbursement under the Rapid Credit Facility to address fiscal imbalance and of payments needing arising from the pandemic. So that's already $4 billion, ladies and gentlemen. But this was April 2020, just 2 months or so after the first 3 billion was received. Then fast forward to July 2021. So this is a year after COVID. If I remember correctly, things had died down a bit. It wasn't as serious as 2020. The World Bank approved another $200 million loan to Ghana for the COVID Emergency Preparedness and Response Project. I remember at the time they said, oh, there's a big second wave coming. We need to prepare. So somehow they secured another $200 million from the World Bank after receiving $4 billion the previous year. And it was aimed at procuring vaccines and strengthening the health system. The facility is a 30-year loan with a 0.5% interest rate and a 1.7% service charge. So over the course of, there's a 30-year, $200 million loan, a $1 billion credit facility which had no conditions or none that we know of, and the $3 billion Euro bond over 40 years. So that's 70 years consecutive for 3.2 billion US dollars, of which they knew for a fact they're not going to be the ones to have to pay or deal with that loan. So I can imagine why they just decided to take, and take. And there was also another big scandal that came up at the time, which had to do with the then health minister. The then health minister had procured, his name was Kweku Ajiman Manu, who decided he wanted to procure Sputnik V vaccines. Ghana had one of the biggest African campaigns supporting vaccines. The moment they heard there were vaccines, Akufo-Addo completely jumped onto the prospect of Ghana getting as much vaccines as possible. Whether it was politically motivated or whether it was monetarily motivated, or whether it was out of fear, as far as we can say now, I can say now I have no idea. And of course, there's some people who, were for vaccines, some were for not. Because of the video having to go on YouTube and various sites, I can't give my view on it, but I think the research now speaks for itself. And this Sputnik V vaccine was actually out of Russia, but it was being procured from a broker in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, or the UAE. And the then health minister of Ghana entered into an unauthorized agreement, signing a contract with a middleman from Dubai or from the UAE of the Sputnik vaccines from Russia without prior parliamentary approval, violating Ghana procurement laws. Yes, Ghana procurement laws are very clear. If you want to procure things on behalf of the government, especially in an emergency situation like that, you most definitely need parliamentary approval. And the minister, however powerful he is, cannot just get up and sign an agreement to um, procure vaccines on behalf of government without parliamentary approval or oversight. Now, the cost of the vaccine was, of course, inflated because we see this time and time again in Africa. Governments, let's even deal with Toyota Land Cruisers, right? Every African government is just crazy about the Toyota Land Cruiser, now known as the LC300 in its current version. For whatever reason, they just need these Toyota Land Cruisers, and these Land Cruisers usually go for about fully loaded. You can get them for about 100, maybe 120,000 US dollars maximum. However, with various African governments, we see these vehicles being procured for 150 to sometimes even up to $200,000. Where the extra funds are going, we don't know because those cars do not come bulletproof. They don't come bomb-proof or with whatever upgrades you would think that would incur the cost of an extra 50 to $100,000. So this is something that it's really remarkable. And so Ghana agreed to purchase each dose of the vaccine for $19 per dose, despite Russia originally pricing it at $10 per dose. This meant that Ghana was paying almost double the market price, raising questions about corruption and financial management. Yes, I remember the opposition, especially NDC, who's in power now, were very, very upset. They were wondering, hey, how did this minister go and decide he wants to sign a contract on government's behalf and procure vaccines for $9 over the price, almost double the price of the market? So it was ignored, it was swept under the rug, and there was no parliamentary stopping or parliamentary, well, at the time the MPP government had the majority, so any complaints that were going through parliament or any issues that went to government were just being quashed and shut down and swept under the rug at the time. And yeah, so these doses were procured, and guess what? They never made it to the shores of Ghana. Or if they did, it was at much later time, and definitely not for the amount that was agreed. Yes, the vaccines were failed to the broker failed to deliver the vaccines despite the Ghanaian government paying $2.85 million, 50% of the contract price, to the middleman. The vaccines were never delivered to Ghana. So, refund after public outrage following a parliamentary investigation and intense public backlash. Yes, I indeed remember the middleman named as Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum of the UAE, as I mentioned, agreed to refund the $2.47 million to the government, though concerns remained about the remaining funds. 2.47 is much less than 2.85, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, we would like to know where the remaining almost $40 million went. Calls for resignation came swiftly after that. I remember that as well. The scandal led to widespread demands for the finance minister Ajiman Manyu's resignation. As he had to, I remember that radio show. He came on and admitted that he not only on radio but on in Parliament, he came and admitted before the parliamentary committee that he acted without cabinet or parliamentary approval due to the pressure to secure the vaccines, and he was sorry. He thought he was protecting Ghana and doing the right thing to protect Ghanaians as his mandate of the health minister. However, the public was not convinced, and this eroded public trust in the government's handling of the COVID-19 funds and vaccine procurement. Everyone started asking the questions, okay, if they've done this with $2.85 million, what have they done with $4.2 billion? And, the opposition tried their best to start putting a microscope into all the dealings with regards to COVID-19, the funding, where the money is going, but they just found themselves in a roller coaster and a merry-go-round of tracing and finding funds having disappeared into thin air, really. And despite the scandal, which was no surprise, Ajiman Manu remained in office. No surprise there because, as I mentioned, any scandals, any issues were covered. The president's nickname ended up being the If I translate it to English, the covering in chief, or the person who hides all the evidence, basically. I don't have the words with me now, but that basically ended up being the president's nickname, the supporter in chief, or the coverer in chief. So, further fueling perceptions of lack of accountability in the government. Yes, I remember people became angry, and that is when the mistrust began between the Ghanaian people and Nana Akufo-Addo. That is really when people started to realize that, wait a second, should we have really given this man a second term? Because it seems that his government, I mean, that's a lot of money to be thrown at you. $4.2 billion. You just won your second term. Elections in Africa come with a lot of spending, and after serving for your first term, you have to behave a bit and try to do your best and try to do as well as you can, so that you can get your second term. But this is when people began to really be like, maybe we made a mistake, because 4.2 billion is a lot of money. I mean, those are funds that you can build. I don't know how many hospitals with those funds. You could probably build a hospital in every city of Ghana with that kind of money. And not only just hospitals, you could fix all the roads, all the bridges. You could start an oil processing plant. You can start a gold processing plant, at least, in major key gold areas, so that you can sell directly to the open market and not through middlemen. That is a lot of money. I mean, 4.2, if there was a free 4.2 billion out there, African governments would be scrambling to try and get it. So they were gifted all that money, and looking back at it now, they pretty much have nothing to show for it. But let's continue with the various scandals. Actually, before the COVID controversy, there was the closure of banks, which was undertaken by the then finance minister and now currently wanted criminal, allegedly, Ken Ofori-Atta, who is the president's cousin, family member, and that's why Akufo-Addo's government was nicknamed Family and Friends Government, because everyone was either a family member, an in-law, or a very close friend from the same village or surrounding area of Achim. So the finance minister, as soon as he got into office, decided to collapse the bank under the name of a banking sector cleanup. Now, yes, Ghana's banks had a very big problem with corruption at the time, 2016, 17, around there. There was a lot of loan fraud. People take loans, get secured loans, and then receive the money, close their account, and run away. This is rampant in Ghana. This was very, very, very evident and used to happen a lot. And there's multiple cases of bank accounts being drained, and just a lot of banking sector issues that arose in Ghana at the time. So the finance minister decided, look, what we're going to do is kill majority of the homegrown banks, because we're going to label them as corrupt, and we're going to basically merge. Uh, first he put a price for banks to continue, and that price was about $100 million, if I'm not mistaken. Each bank has to have capital cash of $100 million or so. And this is easy for the big banks, of course, but we're talking about rural banks, family banks and yeah, entrepreneurial banks that have started, that people started up just to contribute to the economy. So banks worth $10 million, $5 million, $50 million. Of course, they were not going to be able to secure the funds to pay this 100 million or show this $100 million capital. So what happened was that some of them decided to merge so that the company doesn't die. Others were engulfed or absorbed by government and merged into their own kind of banks, which of course were being run by either the finance minister or family and friends. And basically, a lot of local banks collapsed. Even the prestigious Ghana Home Loans, which was the first bank that decided that to specialize in actually home loan and home loan construction. And this was a really innovative bank that uh, revolutionized home loan banking in Ghana. I mean, their motto was come, pay a percentage, and decide if you're gonna take a dollar loan or a Ghana cedis loan, and after you pay that percentage, you pay a few fees, and you can always buy land or buy property or build property, build apartments. They used to fund all of these things. So after this implementation by the finance minister, all these banks had to collapse. They had to sell or merge. So Ghana Home Loans, for example, had to sell to First National Bank of South Africa, um, which is unfortunate because why should a homegrown bank with such innovation have to sell to a South African bank who obviously are just looking for an asset in Ghana? So this was extremely unfortunate, and there's so many stories of collapsed banks and people's monies being locked away and people's treasury bonds being locked away. And in Ghana, a lot of people rely on treasury bonds. They put their money in the bank for a year, and during Christmas they take it out for funerals or for business or home improvements, travel, all sorts of things, education, all sorts of things. So this really affected the Ghanaian people in a very bad way. And under the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta led the collapse of several banks and institutions. While the government justified the move as a necessary reform, critics argued that it disproportionately targeted the institutions not aligned with the MPP. Yes, a lot of NDC uh, bankers or NDC affiliated banks were collapsed, on purpose because they felt like, hey, this is the opposition money, and let's take them out. And rumors of while favoring banks connected to the finance minister himself. Yes, finance minister has a bank called DTB Bank, which absorbed quite a few banks and absorbed the assets of quite a few banks, and now it's one of the biggest banks in Ghana, together with the affiliated insurance company that's also owned by Ken Ofori-Atta himself. So all those banking funds that he captured basically went back into his bank and also to his insurance company. So uh, this is typical African ministerial behavior. Just thinking about themselves and what they'll gain, and not thinking about the general public. And this further fuels speculation about high-level corruption within the ministry. Yeah, that was the first incident that people also started before the COVID happened. That was the first incident that people started to think, whoa, should we have voted for these people, or what is going on here? And let's look now at a campaign promise, the One District, One Hospital agenda, known as Agenda 111, or the One District, One Hospital project. So another ambitious project, the Agenda 111 initiative, promised to construct hospitals in undeserved areas despite being launched with much fanfare. The project has faced several delays, cost overruns, and allegations of contract favoritism. Reports indicate that funds were dispersed, but many hospital sites remain undeveloped. Yes, these people are now out of power. John Mahama has come back with his NDC government, and not a single hospital was built by the NPP. Mind you, this is after them receiving $4.2 billion to fight COVID, okay? Not a single hospital was built. Agenda 111 was one of the biggest campaign promises, especially from the second term. So you'd think that just having won your second term, okay, let's let's now that I've received all this free money, basically, let's try and build a few hospitals, at least some regional hospitals in every single region of Ghana. Let's get it done. Nope, that wasn't done, and people are still having to travel all the way to Accra, or travel to Kumasi, or travel to Cape Coast to get proper medical care. Yeah, majority are traveling to Accra, Korlebu. Still, to this day, after 4 years, 8 years, and $4.2 billion or more. So this was a very unfortunate lie that we now know, and it was not a campaign promise. It was just lip service. Or for whatever reason, maybe he would want to blame his appointees or whoever was in charge at the under the Minister of Health, but that's what happened. And yep, that was just one of the many lies that we're continuing to go through here. The next one was the One Village, One Dam initiative. So Akfuado promised to put one dam in every village in Ghana, or if not one every village, almost every village in Ghana. And this was aimed at improving irrigation in rural communities. This initiative has largely failed to deliver on its promises. Many of the constructed dams have been described as substandard, with some drying up shortly after completion. The initiative has been criticized for poor planning, education, and misallocation of resources. So you can imagine, Ghana has many rivers. Ghana has about 10, 15 rivers or so for such a small country. And yes, every region or every village, well, let me not say village. Let me not get caught up in the lie. But every village, every region at least, could have implemented a dam. Even if it's not a major dam, some type of dam to generate electricity, generate water, whatever the case is, that could have been done, absolutely. But of course, $4.2 billion again, it just didn't happen. Then, after COVID and after the COVID funds disappeared, and now the government was like, we can't ride this COVID wave anymore. I guess we're gonna have to look for something else. They came up with the idea of the e-levy. So the e-levy was championed and implemented by the vice president and the leader of the economic management team, Dr. Baumia. And before this, I forgot to mention about the currency that started failing around just before his second term, which I'll get back to, just before the second term of the Akufo-Addo government, but I'll get back to that. So the e-levy was the introduction of an electronic levy, which was met with widespread public resistance. Yes, people were very angry to be charged money to move funds from their bank account to their mobiles, or their bank account to the mobiles of their loved ones, or charging transactions to your card, debit card, charging transactions to your mobile money, charging transactions to your online banking system. people were extremely upset because they felt, why should I be charged, for moving my own money to my own accounts, for example, or to my mother's accounts, or to whatever, buying groceries or whatever the case is. People were very upset. And the critics argued that it disproportionately affected the ordinary Ghanaians and small businesses while doing little to address the country's economic woes. The rollout was poorly managed and initial revenue projections fell far below expectations, raising questions about the policy and effectiveness. Yes, people completely, after it was announced, and after it was unceremoniously passed in Parliament with the celebration of one of the parliamentarians' birthday, which included a e-levy cake for it to be seen on social media, people decided, yeah, they're having e-levy cakes. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. We're not going to use mobile money for the next year. And lo and behold, people completely cut down on mobile money spending, cut down on bank transfers unless it was completely necessary, and revenues fell completely after this controversial e-levy was put. And it was to such a point that government got frustrated, and I remember they had even removed road tolls so that the e-levy thing could jump off, but people really stuck it to the government and said, no, we're not going to fall for that. And the government actually became frustrated and started blaming Ghanaians that e-levy is failing. So now the country is going to fail. And this was a clear indication that they had already chopped, like the West African Ghanaians and Nigerians like to say, they had already chopped all the money. All the COVID money was already chopped, placed in foreign accounts, invested however they invested it. And now the chickens were coming home to roost. Okay. So in the midst of all this, there was the collapsing of the CD. The Ghana CD was collapsing ever since Mahama lost his second term election, which was 2016. The CD was about, he handed over when the CD was about 3.9 to $1. Okay. By 2024, it had surpassed 14 Ghana cedis to $1. And I remember it was gradual. I think it was about 2018, it rose up to about 5. 2020, it came up to about 9, 10, started playing around 9 or 10. And then very fast though, right after COVID, we started seeing the 11, 12, 13 mark. And I remember before we left Ghana to move to Tanzania, it rose to about 16. And that was the highest I've ever recorded, 16 point something. And it was at that point when I said, okay, yeah, this, the chickens have come home to roost, and yeah, because everything inflated. The inflation went through the roof. There was 30% inflation. Banks didn't want to give loans. They were giving high interest rates, 30, 40, 50% interest rates. Inflation rose to about, almost, I remember you used to buy tomatoes for 3 cedis or one CD per tomato. That ended up being 10, 11 cedis per 3 tomatoes or so. And yeah, I remember the food just became incredibly expensive in Ghana. Ghana is an import society, so most of its food is coming from outside. It imports tomatoes from Burkina Faso. It imports carrots from Burkina Faso, Holland, vegetables from Holland, Europe. meat from Brazil, chicken from Brazil. I mean, it's an agricultural nightmare in Ghana, to be honest with you. Things are just coming from all over the place. There are no checks and balances. You don't know if these are good products or bad products. This FDA will say that, oh, these are approved, but once you take a closer look, someone has been paid something small somewhere for these products to be pushed, and usually it's the products that nobody wants that they just offload and resell to Africa. So there's a lot of controversy with food in Ghana. I think I'll even do a podcast on agriculture and the food situation in Ghana eventually. But yeah, for today, getting back to the Akufo-Addo issues, yes, the Ghana cedi fell and it fell really hard. I mean, it was really bad, and this is after the the vice president himself came on national TV and said that we have arrested the dollar. We have arrested the cedi. Sorry, we've put it under lock and chain. So the cedi is not going to rise, and it rose even further after he said that. So he lost a lot of he lost a lot of respect with the public after that. I don't even know who told him to come and run for president against Mahama, but that's what happened, and here we are. So other scandals also, throughout the time came up. There was the Ajapa royalties deal. This deal was an attempt by the government to monetize Ghana's mineral resources through a special purpose vehicle. However, the deal was widely criticized for its lack of transparency, potential for corruption, and questionable valuation of assets. The opposition and civil society groups viewed it as a scheme to mortgage Ghana's resources to benefit a select few. Yes, they wanted to basically uh, uh, collateralize the gold sales in Ghana, put it under one umbrella, and basically have those funds given to certain families, which the public wasn't supposed to know. But thanks to the diligent work of NDC MPs such as Ablakwa and co. These documents ended up becoming leaked, and it was basically seen that Ghana wanted to collateralize payments for royalties to a certain and select few. So they were caught red-handed, and that deal was thankfully killed. And other scandals that came up also were the land grabbing. You know, half of East Legon, I remember, was pretty old houses owned by, families that have been here for a while. But around 2018, 2 years after Akufo-Addo won, no, sorry, 2022, 2 years after Akufo-Addo won his second term, it seemed like the real estate in East Legon just exploded. I mean, East Legon cantonments real estate just exploded. I mean, properties and apartments were going up left, right, and center. One guy, I won't mention his name, but was just building luxury houses all over East Legon. A couple of MPP guys, young guys, young guys my age, building $1 million mansions out of nowhere. With supercars parked ready to go and drift the streets. I mean, it was crazy. It was good for the urban development, but it really it was shocking to a lot of people. And once the microscope started getting put, it came out that most of these people are MPP, either appointees, affiliates, or working in the MPP government. So clearly, there was a funnel of money that people were accessing that was funding all of these philanthropic real estate projects that were going on. So also there was the PDS scandal, So this was the botched power distribution services. So in Ghana, there's the electricity, the state electric company is called ECG, Electric Company of Ghana. But some 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 MPP affiliates or some dons that they were being called decided they want to sign a deal with America to introduce a new power distribution company, again collateralizing the profits from ECG and basically having PDS, power distribution services, handle those funds, of which that sounded like a redirection of redirection of revenue, but yeah, we didn't know at the time. So the deal was one of the most controversial government agreements in recent history. Initially hailed as a major step towards privatizing and improving Ghana's energy sector, the contract was later terminated due to fraud and misrepresentation. The scandal exposed deep flaws in the government's procurement processes and led to financial losses of the state. Yes, I remember that documents again were exposed, and it became known that basically a group of people under the MPP, of course, came together and wanted to collateralize all the payments, all the revenues that ECG was making in order to redistribute them into both American pockets and Ghanaian pockets of a select few. And, well, whether they misrepresented the facts to the US and duped the US as well, we don't know. But what is clear is that it was just a scheme in order to steal all that money being made from the prepaid electricity system in Ghana. And yeah, the deal was killed. The deal was completely killed, and those who were doing it were shamed and named for the most part. And we saw the return of ECG shortly after that. And there was a merger actually, but everything was reversed and cancelled as soon as the corruption allegations came to light. So another major scandal that came up was the Cecilia Dapa's $1 million under the bed mattress, or in the closet, let me say, scandal. So the former Minister of Sanitation and Works, Cecilia Dapa, came under intense scrutiny after it was revealed that over $1 million in cash was found in her residence. It was actually $1 million in cash, a couple of 100,000 euros, and an undisclosed millions of CDs, Ghana CDs, which allegedly took 15 hours for state revenue security officers to count. And yeah, these government contracts the minister is the housing and sanitation minister. So this minister ran under the campaign that Akufo-Addo's promise of him wanting to make Accra the cleanest city in Africa. And this is something he said on record. So you would think that the sanitation minister, of course, is at all the best global sanitation and eco meetings. She's at what is that? She would be at the global uh, uh, the global meeting for the global, yes, the Paris Accord, and all of the famous meetings that the world leaders come to meet. She was at all of them. And Ghana indeed used to get some big time grants for attending these meetings and for signing some of these agreements. And yes, you'd think that this would be a woman of integrity and a woman that the Ghanaian public can trust. However, it wasn't the case. And after she was caught with these millions of CDs, For the first time, we saw a minister having to resign because it was just red-handed in broad daylight. And the story was even worse. I mean, the story was that her house girls had started chopping the money small, small every day. Just chop, chop. Go into that closet, chop, chop. Hey, did Madame notice today? She didn't notice. Hey, let's go. Chop, chop. They kept taking and taking and taking more money, and eventually, uh, I guess Madame found out because the house girls had started buying their boyfriend expensive house, cars, and so on and so forth. And of course, their life was starting to change. So she actually took her house girls to the police. It was reported that these women were stealing the money. And through that report, I guess either someone leaked or journalists caught wind and blew the whole thing up. So the lady ended up snitching on herself, really. She should have just let that thing go and, I would have stayed quiet, but she reported it to the police. It came out and, the story blew up. Her house was invaded or raided or, security forces ended up going to have a routine check. And yes, indeed, they found millions in cash at her place and they counted the money, provided the evidence to government, not to the public, but to government. It was very hush hush. But she couldn't hide the fact about the $1 million. So what ended up happening is she resigned, and that was it. But her court case, of course, the cover in chief or the uh, the mfuniko in Swahili ni mfuniko, the yes, the cover up man managed to quash all the case, and she wasn't arrested or apprehended. She was just, let go into the night with that resignation. So, yeah, another fortunate thing that really angered Ghanaians as well. Going back to the land grabbing as well, there was an incident with the Achimota forestry where there was a person who had died and named a part of the land in his will. So a part of the Achimota Forest Reserve in his will to be distributed to certain people that he had named. So yes, we saw this caused outrage, and also there are reports that politically connected individuals had taken advantage of their position, Minister of Land, to grab prime real estate at the expense of public interests. This had fueled suspicions and institutionalized corruption. Yes, the Ministry of Land came under extreme scrutiny. I mean, buying land in Ghana is difficult anyway because usually a lot of land is disputed, and people at the Ministry of Land, when you come with a receipt, they'll just issue you a title to lands that other people, of course, own at the same time or have already registered under their name. So when you buy land in Ghana, most probably you're going to end up in court, going to court, trying to claim the land for yourself. And the sellers also don't get in trouble. The sellers are usually chiefs or people connected to the chiefs, and they don't even get in trouble. But yeah, this is an issue that we see a lot. And yes, state lands have been grabbed. It's now being dealt with. All the state lands, the NDC government is trying to get them back because they've gone to private individuals with private interests, no interest for government whatsoever. And yes, these are issues that kept coming up over and over and over again. State lands being grabbed and forestry reserves, not only Achimota, but also Cape Coast and other forestries, people just going and buying them up somehow. Yeah, this was a major issue. And yes, there was also the other scandals, which included the National Cathedral. So the construction of the National Cathedral was initially presented as a national heritage project. However, the project has been marred by financial mismanagement and allegations of embezzlement. Reports indicate that as of December 2021, reports indicate that the government had spent approximately 142 million Ghana cedis on the project, with only the foundation completed by 2023. Total government expenditure has currently risen to 339 million Ghana cedis, covering payments to consultants and the National Cathedral Secretariat. The misallocation of funds and lack of transparency have fueled public anger over the project. Yes, we saw that obscene amounts of money. I mean, let me try and get you the exact figures here. So $21 million have been spent to date on the National Cathedral. $21 million. And they just have a foundation to show for it. And it was so controversial. I mean, the land that was there was actually held as housing for um, the judges, various judges in Ghana. That's where the residence was. So they cleared those judges, relocated them elsewhere, delaying, of course. They were out of a home for a while. And yeah, they cleared out those houses and decided to start construction. The first tranche of 142 million Ghana cedis, or $9 million, was initially paid to contractors. Work started, slowly, work started, but, after a year, 7 months, and all the bishops and all the, evangelists tried to get on board and support and say, hey, this thing is good, it's from God, we need to support it. The president said he'll pay his own money. But of course, it was state funded, and the money went to MPP affiliates, and all that's to show for today is just a pile of dirt. So this was a major, I mean, I think this was one of the nails in the coffin for Akfuado, because, he bringing out, the religious leaders had to start resigning from the board because they saw that no way, this is just a money grab, we've been duped. And it was a major blow to the MPP government, because this is when the distrust honestly went through the roof. And more scandals. We're not done yet. More scandals was the scandals tied to the president's other cousin, the de facto um, prime minister, Gabi Ochere Dako. So this guy is a very dangerous figure, because he's not officially appointed by government, but all the government dealings go through him, if not the other cousin, the finance minister. So he was behind PDS, he was behind Ajapa, he was behind all these controversial, wicked deals that were going through, and the ones that went through, and the ones that went through that we don't even know about. Gabby's hands are always there. So, as a close associate and cousin to the president, and a key power broker with the MPP, Gabi Ochere Darko has been linked to multiple questionable deals and government contracts. His involvement in lobbying for controversial policies and business deals has led to accusations of nepotism and a conflict of interest. Yes, between the president, his cousin, and the other cousin, the finance minister. Absolutely. This is a triangle of conflict of interest and nepotism. Yeah, moving to the finance minister, we already spoke how he collapsed the banks. And the other scandals he was involved with was the distribution of the COVID funds. Of course, all the money was going to him. He was at the center of numerous financial mismanagement claims, including questionable loan agreements and inflated contract costs. Yes, any loan that Ghana took, first of all, it was his bank that was processing that loan. So he got a 10% kickback of any loan. And also, the funds would usually go to his bank first before reaching the Bank of Ghana, or vice versa. So it was just scandal after scandal, and it was just a dangerous recipe of conflict of interest. And I mean, the sheer greed, of these guys, it really struck people it was shocking, the greed that they were portraying, the COVID funds, they chopped it. All the loans that Ghana was taking, they borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. And I don't even have the figures of the loans. I think I'll need a podcast just for all the loans that the NPP Akufo-Addo government took. But these guys borrowed Euro bonds, any grants that was out there, they would go begging bull with the IMF. They went to beg the IMF to return to the program. Any loan that was out there, Akufo-Addo just couldn't resist himself. Probably because he was getting paid through his cousin. Who knows? Allegedly. So it was a dark time. It was a very, very dark time in Ghana after COVID, and everything just seemed to kind of unravel after that period. And recently, Ghana's Office of the Special Prosecutor has been pushing for the repatriation of the ex-finance minister involved in these financial scandals to face criminal investigation. This has further fueled speculation about high-level corruption within the ministry. Yes, he ended up resigning when he made all his money, when everything was, when there's nothing more to steal, when MPP needed to look good for the coming campaign, he ended up resigning. He didn't even care. And why didn't he resign when there was public outcry for him to resign? I remember even his own MPs in parliament said we're not going to conduct any parliamentary business unless the finance minister resigns, because it got to a point where his name was completely destroyed. I mean, all the corrupt deals were tied to him and his cousins, and he was caught red-handed basically towards the end of Akufo-Addo's second term. He refused to resign. He dragged Ghana back to the IMF program. He claimed that no one else can sign that deal except him. And after that, after he completely dragged the country into ruin financially, he resigned and left the country, as you can see now. So it was just a disastrous moment in Ghana's history, to be quite honest with you. And yes, the other scandals was the judiciary. The Ghana judiciary, Akufo-Addo clearly replaced all the judges with MPP judges. You had cases against various individuals that were just getting swept under the rug. People getting caught red-handed in banking financial scams, espionage scams, traitorous scams. I mean, people were getting uh, treason, tried treason in court, and cases being thrown away with, MPP thugs showing up in the court saying, "Hey, if our people get locked in jail, we're gonna collapse the country. We're gonna do the." I mean, open threats. I remember, and it was just a complete state capture. I mean, the judges were bought and paid for. The ministries were bought and paid for. Every corner, every aspect of the nation was just completely under the rule of the MPP and Akufo-Addo. And I remember, well, there had been numerous allegations that the judiciary has been compromised under the MPP government. Many appointees and party associates accused of corruption or violent acts had been acquitted or had their cases dismissed. Notable incidents include the Aisha Wang scandal. Aisha Wang was the most notorious Chinese woman I've ever seen. I mean, this woman single-handedly in Ghana was responsible for the illegal distribution of and export of rosewood. Rosewood is a very prestigious and expensive type of tree that especially Chinese people like to use in their furniture and various trades. She used to export ivory from Ivory Coast. She used to, there was allegations of drug distribution as well. And what she was most notorious for was gold. She used to mine gold all over the country. export gold illegally, sell it illegally. I mean, this woman was at the in the middle of the chain of some serious illegal deals, that was really drying Ghana dry. And when they caught her, it was as if that, okay, finally, let's see uh, justice served. Yes, she was charged. Yes, she was reprimanded into custody. Yes, she was put in jail. But a few months later, all of a sudden, we hear Aisha Wang is in China. And she's in China as part of a deal to reduce debt. I mean, China, Ghana is billions of dollars in debt with China. And this deal was done and her debt was reduced. Sorry, Ghana's debt was reduced. And the woman just basically disappeared to China, which caused, of course, public outrage again with the Ghanaian public. But the deal was done. She was shipped whisked away out of the country, and no one could do anything about it. And another incident was the Awayaso West Wago. This, by the way, I remember a story from Aisha Wang. The police actually came to get her one time previously, and she released two Rottweilers on the Ghana Police Service, sending them running out of their compound for their lives. I mean, this was a notorious woman that allegedly married a Ghanaian person, and her lawyer was, guess what, an MPP lawyer. So it really everything pretty much came full circle. So the OSOS Wogon by-election violence the elections in Iowa West Wagon, it was a by-election that occurred where armed MPP affiliates forces attacked opposition supporters, yet perpetrators faced little to no consequence. Yes, we remember the video. There was live beatings, people being beaten in broad daylight by MPP-trained thugs called Invisible Forces that were implemented right after Akufo-Addo came to power the first time. And yes, the state forces had been captured. People who weren't qualified to be in state forces were put there, as well as other individuals who were loyal to the MPP, violent individuals, I might add, with military training. And these incidents happened numerous times all over the country. The rise of invisible forces were an MPP-aligned militia that has been accused of rogue policing and violent intimidation. Yes, they were in the police, they were in the military, they were in the state security, they were everywhere. It was a rogue unit that had been implemented by the MPP to do their bidding. Kidnapping of journalists, beating of opposition leaders and opposition individuals and opposition supporters. Yes, all of this happened. And we saw the killing of journalists also, most notably Ahmed Swaleh, who is Anas Aremeyaw Anas's partner, or was an investigative journalist who exposed corruption. His murder remains unresolved, fueling concerns about press freedom and political interference in justice. Yes, I remember he was killed not too far from our house, maybe about 20 kilometers or so. Sorry, 10 kilometers or so. And yeah, he was killed in broad daylight. He was in his car outside of his home in Medina. And I guess he was on the phone, and two guys on a motorcycle just came and put bullets, in his head and neck. So yes, this was a very, very brutal, broad daylight cartel style assassination. So rest in peace to Ahmed Swaleh and all the journalists who have faced such wicked acts of crime during that MPP era. Last but not least, not the last, second last, let me say, the lost war on the illegal mining in Galamsey. So President Nana Akufo-Addo declared war on illegal mining. And this was a big campaign promise for his second term. All the water bodies in Ghana became destroyed because of illegal mining and people pouring sulfur and cyanide into the Ghana river bodies, making river bodies unable to be drank from. Local villages and communities were unable to access clean water up to this day. Kidney failure is on the rise as we speak. And yes, as I mentioned, he staked his presidency on resolving this crisis. However, due to the conflicts of interest within his own party, the government failed to take decisive action. As a result, Ghana's water bodies, including major lakes and rivers, have been severely contaminated with mercury and other toxic substances. Yes, the mercury and cyanide actually used to leak from the water bodies all the way into the cocoa crops and cocoa fields, damaging the cocoa industry. And now you see China exporting cocoa and producing cocoa. So this was a collaboration of, self-destruction from certain parties who are involved in this illegal mining, and also it was sabotaged by the Chinese, who are doing a lot of illegal mining, not only to mine our minerals illegally, but also to kill our cocoa and agricultural endeavors in Ghana. So international espionage, uh, war, espionage war, economic warfare, all types of tactics and uh, words can be described with what was happening here. And it's unfortunate. At the end of the day, it's the Ghanaian people who pay with their health, pay with their money, pay economically. It's unfortunate that the MPP failed to protect Ghana in this this war that eventually it became. And yes, communities around the Pra, Ofin, and Ankroba rivers, especially among others, have suffered from the polluted water. They can't drink the water, they can't wash their dishes, they can't bath. I mean, it's a complete disaster. Where do you expect these people to get their fresh water? And kidney failure cases have risen astronomically, directly linked to the consumption of contaminated water from illegal mining operations. The Pra, Ofin, and Ankroba rivers especially, turning orange, have been contaminated. So again, natural water bodies where people just used to go down to the river and get a drink, have a bath, wash their clothes. They can't do that anymore because it's so contaminated. I mean, you can just go on YouTube and look at the documentaries from Joy News about Ghana's water bodies. It's really sad. I mean, really, really terrible stuff that had gone on during the MPP reign for the past 8 years. And I would really employ government to this NDC government really needs to put a stop to illegal galamsey mining. Enough is enough. And yes, last but not least, the scandal that hit the president himself was the presidential private jet and the side chick scandal. Yes, so Akufo-Addo allegedly spent millions on a private luxury jet. This was after COVID, when the country was on the verge of collapse. Um, he spent millions of dollars hiring a luxury private jet, which was the Airbus ACJ 320neo, which costs around $18,000 or pounds, whichever way you like, allegedly, per hour to operate. This was criticized as wasteful amid economic hardships. And additionally, rumors circulated about his involvement with a high-profile personal scandal. Yes, Akufo-Addo was flying around in a luxury private jet, $18,000, $19,000, $20,000, whatever an hour, whatever it was, flying to France, flying to the US, flying around Europe, anywhere that he would go to beg for loans, he would take that jet. Any international meetings, he would take that jet. And it was all state funded. And yes, the woman that he would allegedly fly around with Her name is Serwa. And in Ghana, any Ghanaians know women named Serwa are very difficult or very attractive, one of the two, or to hold all together the two. It's just a joke. But yes, Serwa was an alleged side chick, and she actually went on live, Instagram live, and whatever other live platform, and said, "Yes, I'm the side chick, and I'm right flying around in the president, and he takes baths in the, the private jet comes with a jacuzzi, and yes, we were bathing in the sky." And that became the trademark, the president that baths in the sky. So, my goodness, I mean, when you put all these scandals together, it really paints a picture that the NPP started well, but somewhere, somehow down the line, things just collapse. And the private jet scandal was just the last nail in the coffin. Bathing in the sky. Everyone was just picturing the president bathing in a jacuzzi in the sky and sleeping on a luxury king-size bed inside an airplane flying around the world. And this was a time where inflation was up. Food costed 3, 4 times as more as it should. Fuel was jumping from 15 to 20 CDs to 21 CDs. I mean, it was a disastrous time, and for him to just go and splurge on himself in that type of luxurious manner really showed that all hope had been lost, and there was no affiliation between him and the Ghanaian people any longer, and it was just done. That was it. Yeah, he just for whatever reason he just didn't care anymore. So yeah, that was pretty much yeah, during the end of his presidency. And yeah, the conclusion for this is that the MPP government under Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Baumia had been riddled with scandal after scandal that significantly tainted his legacy. From corruption mismanagement to policy failures, these issues have raised serious concerns about governance, accountability, and misuse of state resources. As Ghana approaches the next election cycle, well, which will be after 4 years that uh, John Mahama has now won, these controversies will undoubtedly continue to play a crucial role in shaping political discourse and voter decisions. So yes, the election happened, and the NDC government under John Mahama won by a landslide. I mean, it wasn't even close. John Mahama won by uh, a popular vote of 6,591,790 votes, which was 56.42%, whilst Dr. Baumia, ex-vice president, won lost by 4,877,611 votes, only garnering 41.75% of the popular vote. So John Mahama won by a bit of a landslide, and it didn't end there. The NDC government won 183 parliamentary seats, gaining 46 parliamentary seats from the last election, and the MPP won only 88 parliamentary seats, losing 49 parliamentary seats. There are 4 independents also. So it was a landslide in parliament. I mean, it's not even close. So the NDC has full control of parliament, full control of Ghana. I mean, people really turned out and made it a point that we are getting these guys out of here. I mean, we've had enough. We are sick and tired. They never listened. They thought it was a game. They thought it was a joke. So we elected to get everyone out of there. That's what the Ghanaian people decided to show. And yes, it's somewhat of a vindication because it shows that In Ghana, if you're a political party, you come with promises, you're given a chance twice, and you decide to mess up in that manner, they will throw you out. They will throw you out and throw you into opposition. And I'm sure it looks like the MPP will be in opposition for a very long time, because of how they decided to run government. And this is also there's also a historical point to this. I think I need to do a podcast on that as well. Is the history and philosophy of the MPP, and the truth behind the JB Dankwa and Akufo-Addo's dad, who was Edward Addo. And yeah, this thing started a long time back. JB Dankwa, Akufo-Addo's grandfather or uncle, whatever it is, basically is the one who overthrew Nkrumah, got Nkrumah out of there, decided to take Ghana for himself. When he saw he couldn't do that, he, formed a group of people to do that. They took over Ghana. They started trying to get all the assets, but there were more coups that followed, and up until John Jerry Rawlings had to come and take control of Ghana. And their philosophy has always been anti-Nkrumah. Their philosophy has always been Ghana belongs to them, a particular family or particular families. And this presidency was just a climax and culmination of that behavior and of that philosophy of theirs. And of course it shows, it shows through their actions, it shows that yes, these people came to just destroy the country and pillage and plunder Ghana. And so it's no surprise what has happened and all that transpired. When you look back, it makes sense. That's the historical aspect. The current aspect is, yes, Akufo-Addo clearly just came to continue his family philosophy, and whatever his family felt Ghana owed them, he came and took it all. And the MPP government has been horribly exposed. And at the end of the day, this is a big lesson. Don't vote for someone twice who comes with promises but doesn't deliver. I mean, this is just uh, common sense 101. Let's as an African people, we need to think with our heads and not our hearts. We need to stop believing people, stop believing promises. We need to hold political leaders accountable. We need to hold political parties accountable. We need to start being outspoken, and we need to stop the fear mongering and the fear of these governments, even though they use um, state forces, even though they use all the arms of the state to drive their agenda. At some point, you can't tackle the whole of a country. You can use their military. There's no military that will execute their own whole country. It's just not gonna happen. So we really need to get our acts together. You see Ibrahim Traore with what he's doing in Burkina Faso next door. I saw that John Mahama has gone to visit him a couple of times and even invited him to his inauguration. And even this week, he went to go on a good neighbor tour, starting with Burkina Faso, if I'm not mistaken. So these are examples that we should follow. The Nkrumahs, the Thomas Sankaras, the Ibrahim Traores of today. We really need to stop with these political lunatics who just come with some populist catchphrases and some songs and dishing out money during election time when they're just coming to enrich themselves and their families forever. Akufo-Addo's daughter also is under intense scrutiny. She's opened restaurants worth millions of dollars and, you know, acquired ambulances for hundreds of millions of dollars over the actual prices, all types of scandals. And again, this is all just to benefit certain families. So Africa, let's wake up. Yeah, let's just wake up. Let's get serious. Let's get to work. It's Africa first. Just, Trump says America first. When is it going to be Africa first? Okay? When is it going to be Africa first? Not individually, but as a whole and together. Again, this comes to my complaint is again with the African Union. They're again a toothless bulldog. They're not keeping their mandates, their compromise, all these happenings that we see in Africa, political parties just raping their countries dry, plundering resources. There's no accountability. We need a federal government who, will oversee each individual government in some way or shape, because it doesn't make sense for the people to be suffering like this. 8 years of real turmoil happened in Ghana. So, um, and the evidence is there. Just go on YouTube, go online, see for yourself scandals in Ghana, you know, procurement scandals. I mean, tender scandal, all type banking sector scandals, loan, everything is there. There's nothing, there's no there's nothing that wasn't scorched during those 8 years. So we thank you again for tuning in to Adinkra Simulizi. And next week we will have another episode, and this time I'm going to tackle sports. We're going to talk a bit about the current sport situation in Africa. There's a current thing happening in Tanzania that happened over the weekend, and also we want to talk about a bit about the Ghana Football Association, and we also want to talk about sports in the US as well. So next week will be a bit more light. We're giving after 2 episodes of political, I wanted to switch it up a bit. So yes, let's meet again next week. Let's stay tuned. And as always, more power to the more power to the continent of Africa.